All right, it's 31 minutes past 7 a.m. It's a holiday Tuesday morning, smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's that time to get into the headlines and the papers on Freshly Pressed. Take a look at the major talking points, get analysis, and we get your thoughts and contributions as well. Welcome once again to a Tuesday installment of the show. My name is Ayokunmi, and joining me to take a look at the headlines today, give analysis, and give us a better understanding of what is going on. Chibuzor is with me on the call today, even though virtually. Very good morning to you, Chibuzor. Great to have you join me on the show.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Lagos.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I know normally you'd be in the studio because Chibuzor is always in the studio, but of course, I just knew that as soon as the declaration of the holiday, hit the news yesterday, I just knew that, hey, that was not going to happen. I don't blame him. I'd be at home too if I could, but I'm here doing what I enjoy, doing what I love, and spending time with you on the radio. But it doesn't change the fact that the show must go on. And indeed, that's what's going to be happening for the next 30 minutes or thereabouts. And you can join us as you always do by sending your messages in on WhatsApp on 0809 444 0981. 0809 444 That's the WhatsApp number to send your messages on to. You can also join the live stream on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can also leave your messages there in the chat box. I'm taking them along with WhatsApp messages. All right, let's start the journey this morning in The Guardian, still about former President Muhammadu Buhari, who passed away on Sunday. The National Assembly's decision to suspend legislative activities for 1 week in honor of the late former president has drawn criticism from stakeholders who accuse lawmakers of exploiting the tragedy for personal convenience. Now, while the legislative arm of government announced the suspension as a mark of respect for Buhari, who died on Sunday in London, observers maintain that the move lacks sincerity and may be politically motivated. Well, I was speaking to a group of friends yesterday. This was before the holiday was actually declared. And a friend of ours in London was talking about it, and he said, "Oh, is there a holiday yet?" and all that. And we said, "Well, nothing like that yet." Then later on, it was declared, and then we heard, okay, the National Assembly would be away for a whole week and everything. And then I said, well, I'm not too surprised. Any reason for them to be out of work, they will jump on it. But I mean, a whole week, Chibuzor, away from what they need to be doing. Is this reasonable?
Um, I don't think everybody's bothered by the reasonability or lack thereof of the actions these days. I think the National Assembly does what the National Assembly wants to do, or like some other people commenters in this story have said, does what the government wants them to do when they want them to do it. So if you look at the story, so I think the key points to take away from the story is that the National Assembly does have a constitutional obligation to have to sit for 181 days in a year, according to 99 Constitution. And what has happened is that consistently the National Assembly has fallen short of this target. What they've tried to do, the smart people that they are, is that they've tried to put oversight functions and other things, like when they go and visit their constituency back home, which is partly their holidays, and try to add it to the number of days that they have to actually work. So they basically try to fudge the number and get to like 181 or something close to it. But constitutionally, they've struggled to sit down and sit on Nigerian issues for 181 days. Now, if you look at if Nigeria, everything was hunky dory in the country, then you say, hey, no issues. We don't need them. Or if they were being paid part time to do this function, then yes, no issues.
Mm.
But this is a country that needs effective intervention, and changes need to happen. And they seem, and I'm using that word very carefully, to look for every opportunity not to go to the office, despite the all the things that are being done for them, for the fact that they are staying. I'm sure the distances between where they reside and where they are supposed to meet to sit isn't as great as what most of us commute on a daily basis. We provide them vehicles to be able to make those commutes. we pay for allowances for them to sit. All sorts of things are
Right.
being paid by the state. But somehow they still find manage not to be able to sit down for the day. And love him or you know, it's quite unfortunate that everything is done around, you, you pick the opportunity of the death of the former head of state. Now, as a Nigerian, and this on the side issue, I feel cheated. They chose to give, and this is how they reason. They've chosen to give us the people one day, just one day to mourn our beloved late president, and they've taken an entire week for themselves. As are they trying to prove that they love the man? They love the man more than the rest of us, But it's a bit of a problem. I would have thought that the same one day that has been extended to the Nigerian citizens would have been adequate for the rest of them to actually sit and join the rest of the country to actually sit down, mourn in quotes, in air quotes, as we are choosing to mourn today.
Yeah.
Think about the impact that this man has had on the country, both positive and negative, like a lot of people would say. Think about where we are as a country today and map out, think about what they would resolve to do to move us away from where we are in conjunction with the executive and the Nigerian citizens. But no, this is not the path that they have chosen to take. A lot of things that even around the death of the man, and I think it's Chief Michael Zekome that
Is
pointed
it
this
coming?
out
Yeah.
that it's right. He's right. It's quite sad that our former head of state, and this is the second head of state that's passed away in I think since '99 when we went back, second civilian head of state passed away in a foreign land, in a foreign hospital in a foreign land. And we spend years upon years spending and investing money into our health system. We're not spending enough into our health system. The last 2 or 3 years, we've watched as a lot of our health professionals have left the country because of inadequate funding into the health systems. It's extended more than 3 or 5 years. I think even as far as when this man was in power. And the questions we ask ourselves: how many more of our ex-presidents or leaders will go abroad, despite the fact of having the having had the power and the opportunity to change things and improve the systems here, will still go abroad to use foreign health systems and would
Mm.
have to now bring them back here. So for me, it's a reflection of where we are in terms of we have not done enough to be able to take care of our people, even of our people, because and it also speaks about the gaps between our peoples where they are, where what our leaders our leaders and our elite choose to utilize and choose to afford when they
Yeah.
have had the opportunity to make changes here as against what they have left behind for the citizens of the country. So, it's where we are today, but I think that the National Assembly can do much better than giving themselves an entire week to just go and have fun and, in quotes, according to them, mourn the death of the president, where they actually should be doing the work to make things change and make things better in this country.
Hmm. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, let me sneak a message or two in here concerning this issue. Emeka Nikeja says, if the National Assembly wants to stay off duty for 1 month, Ayo, please, what will you do? Take whatever you see from them. Bold of you to assume I'm even seeing anything from them. I mean, how much are we seeing from them in the grand scheme of things? But, when these issues come up, these are questions that definitely need to be asked. That's exactly why we are here this morning and really every other morning to talk about these issues and or anomalies as far as I'm concerned. Jerry says, this Tinubu assembly has just shown they don't have any work to do. Anyone that has a job to do won't be too happy to be asked to go on holiday. Jerry, if I get a holiday, trust me, I'll be happy to take it. Believe me when I say that. He then says, so Buhari's family is apologizing for his maladministration. What of those who died? He paid lip service fighting Boko Haram for 8 years. President Tinubu should take a cue. And by the way, where's the president? Well, as far as I know, and from what I heard last, he's in Katsina. The funeral is today, so I think he's going to receive the body and so on and so forth. So he should be in Katsina at this point in time. If anyone has any updates on that, you can please pass that on to me or pass that on to us on WhatsApp. Once again, the number is 0809 444 Dan from Dubai on YouTube. Dan, very good morning to you all the way out there in Dubai. Great to have you on the show. All right, let's keep the bus rolling along, and we're stepping into the vanguard. This one is interesting. Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike has advised Governor Monday Okpebolo of Edo against dissipating his energy and resources to probe his immediate predecessor, Godwin Obaseki. Wike, who gave the advice during his visit to the state, also urged the governor to concentrate on the development of Edo State. Now, the minister said in a statement signed by his spokesman, Mr. Liri Olayinka, that probing the former governor would achieve no meaningful results. Now, he stressed that it was better for the governor to deploy his time and the state's resources towards achieving his developmental goals for Edo people. And it's interesting that the FCT minister, who's not even from Edo State to start with, is advising the Edo State governor to not look into the activities of the former governor. Now, I'm not saying that there's a reason to actually do that, but is he trying to say that if there is a reason to look into the activities of the former governor, there may be accusation or something, that he should not do that because it's a waste of time and should focus his energies on governing the state? Yes, I mean, now the whole litigation over whether or not he won the election and so on is over. He should face governance. But is Minister Wike saying that looking into the past misdeeds of a predecessor is something that incumbents should not bother themselves with? Is that what he's trying to say?
Okay, I'm going to start with the more important part or the most serious part of this story, because a lot of the nonsense that we're hearing in this story really are fillers. The important part to the people of Edo State basically is that there's a newly constructed terminal for the Edo line, and they're actually looking at the second phase of the central bus terminal project. I think that's the most important thing to people of Edo State. That's what their money is, or whatever is left of it has been used to do. And believe you me, it's appreciated because Edo line, as you know, back in the day, used to be Bendel line. Now, before it's split into Edo and Delta line. So I am someone who appreciates that and who has seen that. And you know, back then, you used to see those buses, and it used to be for me. I come from Delta State, and used to be those signs back in the day were people that were going home or towards where my parents came from, and there's some level of nostalgia about it. So it's good to see that
Right.
some work is being done to bring it back. I hope they work on their levels of service and they improve every other thing around it, apart from just building bus stops and bus terminals. Sorry. Um, and it's quite interesting that he was going back to it. Former Governor Wike, now Minister Wike, was supposedly he was in Edo State because he was supposed to be part of this launching. And for the for the love of me, I still do not understand why we spend so much money on launch events for. While this is important, I do feel that this should be normal operational duty, but politicians
Mm,
will be politicians. So he was in Edo State for this. Unfortunately, the event was cancelled because of that. So he would have to find his way back either by air or by bus back to. Um, it would have been good if he goes by bus back to Abuja, but I suspect he will go by air. And he spent his time, doing what Wike does a lot, which is talking on him, making comments on invited promises. I think he's missing I don't know if he's missed his weekly media chat, but he spent a lot of time talking about this issue and giving a lot of commentary about what really is not his business. Like you pointed out, I think one of the things why he makes some of these comments is to ensure that he remains in some form of national relevance. So obviously, as governor of Rivers State, he was supposedly the major funder of the People's Democratic Party, which is now supposed to be in the opposition at the moment. And at that point, when they were trying to bring in Governor Obaseki, he was one of the people supposedly that funded and supported Governor Obaseki's ascent to governor. And in doing that, he also clashed with the now Senator the former NLC leader who is now former NLC leader and
Adams
former
Oshiomhole.
governor Adams Oshiomhole, who is now a senator. And so he's taking this opportunity to actually publicly apologize in air quotes to the man and also give advice to the governor who is also um, supposed to be a follower of the former of Senator Oshomole. If we look at the advice he's given, which is that he should focus a lot more on governance and less on looking back at the actions or inactions of his predecessor in terms of a probe, I would slightly agree that you need to focus on governance because that is why the people of Edo State have employed you or have allowed you to serve them. But if governance also is if part of governance is also holding accountability and also managing and being a trustee of the funds and of the
Mm,
state,
yeah.
then if looking back adds value to that, then that should be done. The truth is that we have got a lot of governors who tend to go through this entire big process of looking back of carrying out probes when they are sent to power, especially when the person who they replace is either from another party or somebody who that they had clashed with repeatedly while they were not in power, and they go through this entire hue or cry where they carry out a probe. Even before the probe is carried out, they're already making noise on what the former guy is guilty of. And I actually think it's a waste of time because within the government and within the structure of government, you actually have checks and balances that should be working on an operational basis to carry out audits, to carry out controls,
Uh,
such that
uh,
governors and even the state legislative are part of those systems. But what tends to happen is that Nigerian politicians themselves are responsible for eroding these controls along with civil servants and civilians and appointees. They erode these controls. So these controls are unable to function as they ought to because on each of these parastatals in the state should have an audit reports that come out on an annual basis on a regular basis that should have been passed on to the House of Assembly or the people of the state so that everything
yeah.
will be
Yeah.
transparent. But no, this is not obviously not happening. If this was happening, we would not need to have an entire exercise of a massive probe into all the happenings of the governor so that the governors can face time on doing whatever they need to do. And the people who are employed to do those jobs can spend their time doing it and submit their reports when they need to do it. And the House can have its sittings. The governor can do it with this, the EFCC or whoever needs to come in can do their thing if anybody's found guilty. That is how systems should work. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, we tend to focus a lot on eroding systems instead of empowering systems. We tend to now raise people, individuals, to almost godlike status where they are the ones who are the systems instead of the structures, the functions. And so when these people leave power, they exit. When these people are in power, they can do and undo. So when they exit power, the only thing to hold them to account is to want to carry out a probe. Then we go through the hue and cry of calling the EFCC, the ICPC, and all the court cases that we do, while at the same time still spending more of the people's funds, of which you are not, in most cases, they are not able to recover to put back into development use, or when they do recover, somebody else loots them again. So that is the state of our nation today. And you know, in the larger scheme of things, we need to sort out the system. But at this point, well, if you look at this particular story, Minister Wike has done what Mr. Wike does, which is does his own. He has this is a man who does weekly press meetings and those are not even press engagements. They are basically opportunities to do his own PR and also has his own when he goes for his public gatherings he has a marching band to sing his praises, so we know the kind of person he is, and this is just part of his this is part of his life. This is how he operates, so he's doing what Mr. Wike does.
Mm.
It's all about him.
One thing is certain, he definitely does love the sound of his own voice.
He
Let me get a
does.
mess. Let me get a message or two here. This is Ade in Lagos. Ade says, you can see with the death of a former ruler Buhari, you can see all the public holiday declaration by this government, the Senate suspending plenary, flags flying at half-mast, and other eye service and hypocrisy. Uh, People were killed in Benue, more than 500 died in Niger floods, thousands displaced, more than 40 military killed in their base in Borno, and so on and so forth. Since this government came into power, more than 1,000 people killed due to insecurity in the country. Do you have an aggregate of the 1,000 people? Are they up to 1,000? We need to get our numbers correctly. We have the highest out of school children in the world, highest IDPs, 7.2 million private and public and SME shut down and turning the people into beggars and so on and so on and so forth. Thank you, Ade, for your message. Ajayi Ululua in Magudu Jerry Sherry says the declaration of a public holiday and suspension of legislative duties by the National Assembly to mourn the death of former President Muhammadu Buhari is an unnecessary distraction, even as another former head of state is still lying in another London hospital. In any case, thousands of ordinary citizens that are being slaughtered daily across the country are left unsung. God help us. Yes, indeed. God definitely help us. All right, Chibuzor, let's step into the premium times and talk about issues surrounding CNG. This was an investigation done by Premium Times. Now, it has exposed how the black market trade and conflict of interest are compromising the presidential initiative on compressed natural gas. That's PICNG, a Nigerian government program aimed at reducing transportation costs following the removal of fuel subsidy. Now, the weeks-long investigation involved on-the-ground reporting, deep dives into open source data, and exclusive conversations with insiders, including major players in Nigeria's CNG industry. It is interesting what is happening here because when you talk about black market trade, conflict of interest, and so on and so forth, it's an age-old tale in Nigeria where an initiative is launched. Let's even say another government entirely, not even this government. We've seen these things before, and then those who are supposed to handle it begin to handle it, and then those who are further down the value chain then begin to muddy the waters because of their own personal gain and so on and so forth. And we're kind of seeing that, according to this story, in this CNG initiative. So give us some more insight into what's going on here.
So I think basically, when you read through the story, a lot of the input, there's a lot of data, a lot of numbers around the story, right? And the long and short, basically, or the summary of the numbers that comes out of this is telling us that we are not unable to, we are basically unable to reconcile the amount spent to the impact of this program. So what has happened here is that Premium Times has approached the have approached the government in form of the have approached the government basic to understand how much has been spent on this program. So they've approached the presidential initiative on compressed national gas with PICNG to understand how much has been spent on this initiative. So the president, part of the president's plans when he removed the subsidy on PMS was that they were going to, when he removed the petrol subsidy just after he was inaugurated on May 19th, or during his inauguration on May 19th, in 2023, was that we were going to move to compressed national gas, to alleviate the cost of transportation. So it was cheaper, it was going to be more affordable, it would reduce the impact of the removal of subsidies. And obviously, the government was thinking also about the fact that they would have to spend less importing petroleum, which is what we were doing at that time to be able to source the market. So they'll spend less of our forex to do that. So it was a good initiative they were pushing out. And it would involve cars or car owners having to convert their current engines to support CNG. Now, the president had ordered the distribution of 1 million free CNG conversion kits, and they had set up the PICNG. Now, what had happened as part of that was that they were supposed to reach out to commercial car drivers, vehicle drivers across the states of the federation, reach out to various groups who were involved in that chain, and distribute kits or offer kits at reduced prices. Now they targeted the NURTW, the car vehicle, like I mentioned, the ride-sharing organizations, Uber, Move. I would stop at that. And they said as of 2024, they had distributed 15,310 between 2024 and May 2025. They had refused the 15,000. They had actually released 15,310 conversion kits.
Okay.
And Premium Times approached them for details. of the cost or how much had been spent via an FY request. The report was that the details of the cost was not released to Premium Times, but Premium Times have reported in this story that 45 billion has been spent so far. So the question is, what has the 45 billion been spent on, right? You know, with all the conversion centers, all the states that have been targeting, how much has been spent, what has been can we correlate the 45 billion that has been spent so far to the impact on the streets, on the roads, or roads of Nigerians,
Because
or the
45
lives of
billion is quite a bit of money.
45 billion is quite a lot of money for conversion kits and, well, let's say running the entire program. You have other things that will be spent on,
Yes.
right? It's a lot of money. Can we draw parallel? Can we draw lines between that amount of money and the impact that we're seeing on the roads today? Because if you look at a lot of the question would be how much has it affected the prices of transport prices for the vehicles that are utilizing these kits, across the federation. So it will be nice to know, but looking at where 45 billion, how much 45 billion naira is, despite whatever has happened to the naira, and looking at what we are seeing on the roads, there's a bigger gap, bigger questions that need to be answered. And I think, knowing Premium Times, I believe they'll still be pushing to understand where the rest of what that money has been used for, because we have a lot of points down here that the money was paid to 19 transactions to 14 companies, including the Ministry of Finance, who have been procuring kits and biofuel buses. So maybe the money went into the buses, but I think, and if you look back at what goes into what we said in the other story, it's also about a level of transparency. So when you have a request, the expectation is that you get some clarity in terms of, you get a response that gives you some clarity in terms of where this money has gone to.
Exactly.
And that's
exactly.
And when that happens, what it does for the government is it builds trust in the government. It reduces all the back and forth and, all the side questions and all that. I'll recall, I think it was some years ago when the Lagos state government there was a lot of hue and cry about some amounts about that were being spent by the Lagos state government, and somebody basically pushed everybody back to go and look at Lagos state budget and the lines, and that those numbers were available freely on their website. Either rightly or wrongly, when people went there, the hue and cry and the noise around that subsidized, because you could call to question how much was being spent for items, but it was clear and people could see what had been spent.
They could
How it
follow
had been spent was a different.
They could follow the records.
Exactly. You could have questions about how an item would cost so much, but at least there was some level of transparency. It will bring other questions, but government should be open to both introspection and open to questioning. But in these climes, you don't see that. So I do hope that Premium Times digging would give us more insight, because Nigerians are under a lot of pressure financially. Our disposable income is no longer disposable, and it's the government is pushing for us to pay more in terms of taxes, or pay right taxes, pay more in terms of fees, and we need to see where these fees are going to. So it will be good to get some level of clarity in terms of this. And if you are getting more CNG buses, more CNG vehicles to reduce the cost of transportation, it'll also be good to see them on the streets. So I think this is more of a story about call for accountability, and we do I do appreciate the likes of Premium Times and also Serap and the likes that go into and do carry out this kind of activities to shed more light on how our monies are being spent and how government actually performing.
Yes, indeed. Chico, you mentioned something about this level of distrust, and sometimes I just wonder, maybe is it that the government don't really understand the trust deficit that's between them and the people as well, because a lot of Nigerians now tend to look at many things they do with a lot of skepticism, and there's always a feeling that something isn't right here. So there's a real need for them to find a way to rebuild said trust. And when you have situations like this, where the CNG initiative is concerned, where there are a lot more questions than answers, it doesn't really do much to help that assertion and that thought process as well. All right, let me take.
Sorry, the cynical me would say a lot of people in government, including the likes of Minister Wike that we spoke in last story, really don't care if you trust them or not.
And there we have it. And there we have it. All right, let me take the messages that are still here as we wrap up on the program. Joseph Menia in Silver State in Ejigbo says, it's just pathetic how Nigeria pays humongous salaries to the Senate and House of Assembly. A whole week to mourn an ex-president, but can't mourn victims of flood and Benue State massacre for a single day. On one side, the vice president and entourage are traveling. They've already traveled to London to bring the remains of the ex-president. Is he now a pilot? Take time to listen to a song by
It's just
Tribesmen.
protocol. It's just protocol. It's protocol.
Protocol. Right.
It's
Protocol.
protocol.
Listen to a song by Tribesmen. Plenty nonsense. You now understand Nigeria. It's well. I haven't heard that song in a while. Maybe I need to go and replay that. Thank you, Joseph, for bringing that back to my consciousness. It's been a while. I listened to that. Tony Nikeja says every Nigerian leader sees it as a status symbol to die abroad. To these folks, it separates them from the rest of the people. To them, oh, our president or ex-head of state died abroad, evokes power and status. Can't you see the speed with which they're flown overseas over a minor cough or itchy eyes? The day Nigerians have a feel of quality leadership, they'll curse these leaders wherever their names are mentioned. This is Gilbert Musa in Festac. He says, like Chibuzor said, controls and checks have deliberately been eroded by leaders and civil servants, particularly in the public sector. The need to build strong institutions and get persons with proven track records of integrity to work in these institutions cannot be overlooked. Thank you for that, Gilbert. And Daniel from Festac says, the cognitive dissonance of Nigerian leaders seeking medical treatment abroad while their citizens are left to use the broken down healthcare system is annoying. President Tinubu is towing the path of former President Buhari. No meaningful action or investment by the government in our healthcare system in the last 10 years, except for tokenism. It's when there's a medical crisis or industrial unrest that Nigerians will blame doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and so on. The proof that our hospitals are bad is evidenced by how our leaders still fly abroad when they fall ill. They need to change their focus on providing basic things for Nigerians. All right. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. And thank you for all the messages. Very much appreciated. Thank you so very much, Chibuzor, for taking out the time to join me on your holiday Tuesday.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aya. Thank you, Lagos.
All right. Have yourself a great Tuesday and get yourself ready for work tomorrow. It's back to life and back to reality for you and everyone else out there.
Yeah.
All right, Lagos, Nigeria, the entire world, everybody's here listening to us. Keep it tuned to the Smooth Breakfast here on Smooth 98.1. The show will kick on 8:15. It's a walk into the grapevine, entertainment gist, and so much more coming your way.